then what else do we expect to happen?
Look, if you want to have a democracy, it is important for the public to be educated, because an educated populace is what allows you to have a democracy rather than tyranny and violence. So from my belief, the more people are educated, the more people learn, the more people understand, the more vibrant will be the democracy.
So it seems to me that Dr. Howard Fuller has never read Plato or perhaps even Plutarch, because if he did, he would have also said that education's sole purpose should be developing a young person's virtue along with their character. Yes, education can help a person make rational decisions. However, when it comes to actually living in a democracy and participating in it, one needs to develop the wisdom that goes along with actually making political decisions that not only affect you, but also affect the entire society as a whole. And school cannot teach wisdom. Schools can teach facts, or rather knowledge, but wisdom comes from lived experience, reflection, failure, and applying knowledge with good judgment, something deeper than what a school's curriculum can offer. Education, therefore, should provide the framework for obtaining the best life through personal reflection, developing emotional intelligence, and purposeful living. But in my opinion, schools are not teaching young children on how to develop any of these moral attributes. Instead, young children are taught from a young age to have no personal ambition or agency. And so, in this case, how can a society raise a population of wise and educated people when they are not even taught on how to think and act for themselves, and instead are just blindly told to think and believe whatever the teacher is saying without any type of critical judgment? Not only that, but he also argued that education reflects the values of a society. If that society honors wealth, pleasure, or power above virtue, education will then reinforce those values, corrupting students' character rather than improving it. Chicago's Teachers Union is a good example of this because they are essentially the modern day equivalent of the sophists. And so, in this case, education becomes corrupted when it favors blind political power over the truth. Plato sharply criticized the sophists. They were teachers who were skilled at rhetoric but indifferent to truth. When institutions use language to persuade rather than to illuminate, education then becomes manipulative. And if the certain messaging of a union revolves around framing every disagreement as moral outrage, simplifying complex issues into slogans such as tax the rich, or discouraging internal dissent, then Plato will look at this and see the Chicago's Teachers Union as our version of the sophists. And we, in turn, would then see them as engaging in sophistry. Ergo, winning arguments rather than seeking what actually benefits students. Plato was also deeply skeptical of democracy because it tends to reward popularity over competence, emotional appeal over reason. And so, therefore, democratic institutions often elevate leaders who are good at mobilizing crowds, not those best suited to govern wisely. A good example of this would then be Mayor Brandon Johnson, who also happens to be a member of Chicago's Teachers Union. And then, in the context of Chicago's Teacher Union, they often favor leadership that's selected more for ideological alignment, rhetorical skill, and activist energy, rather than for somebody who has deep educational expertise. Plato would then say that this structure itself invites corruption. So, in conclusion, Plato would argue that any educational institution becomes corrupt when it forgets that its highest duty is forming virtuous citizens, not advancing political or economic power, even if that power is claimed in the name of justice. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.